Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the award-winning Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein. If you've been following us for a long time, you know we have an ongoing series of conversations with legendary photographers of all genres. This week's guest is certainly a legend of sports photography. Her name is Elsa Garrison. Elsa was the first female staff photographer hired at Getty Images and has been shooting sports for over 30 years. She has consistently produced incredibly memorable photos across the world of sports from every event she covers. The Olympics, World Series, Super Bowl, NBA and Stanley Cup Finals, World Cup, Final Four, you name it, Elsa has been there and produced iconic photography. I was thrilled to chat with Elsa right after she returned from the 2026 Winter Olympics, where once again her photography became instant classics. The USA men's hockey team's gold medal victory and Jack Hughes' toothless image of celebration, Alyssa Liu's breathtaking figure skating performances, and so much more. Elsa's poignant and beautiful photo of Kobe and Gigi Bryant from the 2016 NBA All-Star Game is beyond iconic. So many murals have been painted from that image and are featured in Vanessa Bryant's book that Legends of Sport produced, Mamba and Mambacita Forever. I've known Elsa for almost her entire career. We worked side by side at many big NBA and NHL events over the years. She's a pro's pro. Every young sports photographer should follow her. She's a terrific role model. So much fun chatting with Elsa on this episode. I hope you all enjoy it too. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. I'd like to welcome the great Elsa Garrison to the Legends of Sport podcast, continuing our series with legendary photographers. And what a pleasure, Elsa, to have you. How you doing? Have you caught up from sleep, with your sleep from the Olympics yet? I mean, what's going on?
Sort of. It's kind of been a whirlwind. I stayed in Italy for about another week or so after doing a
Nice.
pair. Yeah, so I was there doing the part of the Team USA welcome experience for the U.S. Paralympic athletes. So most
Yeah.
of them came through Venice, and so I shot their official portrait that goes on the USOPC website, and then just kind of followed them along when they got their kits from Nike and Ralph Lauren. And so I kind of
Mhm.
hung out there for a few days while still having a lot of people wanting to talk about
Yeah.
the hockey, the gold medal hockey game too. So trying to balance that with the time zone was kind of crazy. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but it was cool. Slowly getting back into it. I still randomly wake up at 3 a.m. for some reason, but
Yeah.
hopefully that will kind of work itself out here in the next week or so.
Well, let's talk about the Olympics and I want to get, we'll do a full circle and go back to where you started and all that. But this was an incredible Olympics. I mean, every Olympics is great, summer and winter, but I think people were so tuned in, especially to the men's and the women's hockey, more than ever, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the men's team, I think, well, maybe the women's team rivaled the 80 men's team, Miracle on Ice. I don't know from your perspective what you think, but having both teams win the gold and in the fashion that they did, the excitement of it, um, you and I both been in the trenches at big games, at big events. We got to do our job, but tell me what it was like being there, what the atmosphere was, Elsa.
So I did the men's gold medal game. During the women's gold medal game, I was actually doing the figure skating. So I got
Ah,
to watch Alyssa Liu
yeah,
crush her performance, and that was a really cool
that
environment.
was
But
amazing. Yes.
it was like a Stanley Cup Finals game 7 on steroids. Like I felt like everyone was really into it. Like the place was packed, it was loud, it was rocking. The fans like had great signs. I think one of my favorite signs I shot a picture of is like your bacon is just ham,
Yeah,
and so, like of all the
right.
disses, that's what you're going to come up with, right? And
Yeah.
so it was cool. It was a lot. I still love that sign.
That's
I'd
great.
wear that on a shirt. But anyway, it felt like the game was a lot closer than I thought it would be because all the pundits and the hype around it was that on paper Canada had such a stronger roster and that
Yeah.
it was likely going to be the U.S. was just going to be destroyed, and they came out playing tough and they
Hmm.
scored first. And For me, I was lucky that it all happened in my end, honestly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's kind of the luck of the draw. Shooting Olympic hockey where we don't have the holes that we have in NHL, so we're shooting through the glass. So that
Mm.
presents another technical problem that you think about when you're positioning yourself at a hockey
I
game.
didn't even think of that. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, the trick is to give yourself a little bit of depth of field. So I was shooting at f3.2,
Yeah.
which isn't a ton of depth of field, but maybe it's just a mental thing. It makes me feel better, like I'm going to get something sharper through the class because
Yeah.
I'm shooting 3.2.
Wait,
But
I gotta ask you this. Were you using the David Clutho like gigantic like apparatus that he used to attach to his lens to keep the reflection off of the
no, I
camera?
thought about it, but I didn't
Yeah.
have enough gaffer tape because he would use a whole roll to make that thing. And
I've sat next to him many times with that thing. I can't believe he got away with it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think the difference too is like when he was using that and shooting through glass, we had fans all around us.
Yeah.
Whereas like at Olympic hockey, there's kind of like a moat around, and so you got a good like 20 feet to where the fans start. So like,
Mhm.
most of I was wearing dark clothing because you don't want to wear anything light because that will reflect into the glass.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so most of us were kind of wise enough to be, wearing dark clothing around us. And
Uh-huh.
so didn't need the tape shield for that. But if, we were sitting amongst the fans or if
Yeah.
I was kind of prepared with something. I had like kind of a rubber lens hood or I had some tape that if I had to make something, if someone sitting next to me was wearing something bright that was reflecting,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
had that sort of in the back of my head, but no one can construct that
Yeah. Yeah.
marvelous thing that David Clutho would make.
No,
And he'd spend like an hour and a half or so doing it. Like he was very meticulous
oh,
about
I
it.
know. And
And
then he had some rubber thing. I actually went out and bought. It was like a cinematographer's lens shade thing that was
yeah,
rubber that you pushed up against the glass. It was crazy. Anyway,
yeah, it
um,
had like suction cups or something. And like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But what? How exciting! And the figure skating was off the chart too. I mean, she was unbelievable, Alyssa Liu. And did you shoot the pairs and all that stuff? Or
So I did the pair event. I'm
uh-huh.
trying to remember what I did because I
Yeah.
bounced around. I wasn't, there were some photographers that we had that were very sport specific. So
Uh-huh.
our Dean was on speed skating, like Matt
Hmm.
Stockman. You've met Matt. He did
Yeah.
figure skating and short track because they were both at the same venue.
Hmm.
Bruce Bennett and Greg Shamus did hockey pretty much exclusively. I think Greg got out to do one night of figure skating, but for the most part, they were both on hockey.
Hmm.
And so I bounced around between long or short track, speed skate, figure skating and hockey. And
Hmm.
so I would just kind of bounce around. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it's a good and bad sort of thing. It's like sometimes it's early on it's kind of hard to get into like a rhythm of things, but then you always get to see something different. So I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that part of it. But
Yeah.
but then again, it's kind of like when someone says, "Oh, what did you do?" And I'm like, I can't remember what day I did what.
I
Like
woke up, I packed my gear, I went to the venue, I came home and did it all again the next day. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
crazy. It was even crazier as you remember back in the film days because we had to get the film developed and man, how many Olympics have you shot total, summer and winter?
So I was kind of late to the summer games. So my
Hmm.
first one wasn't until 2012, but I think let me think. Um, I think that was my eighth or
Yeah,
ninth one,
that's
maybe. Yeah,
a good
with summer and
number.
winter total. I had to like
That's
kind of think.
amazing.
The
Yeah.
first one I did was Nagano in '98 after I had started, and I wasn't a photographer. I was
Hmm.
a darkroom tech, editor,
Hmm.
caption person. And the reason I
Hmm.
did get to go initially is because I wrote great captions, and
Yeah.
so apparently that was a skill back in the late 1900s, as
Yeah.
as the kids
Yeah.
like to say. So
Yeah.
that was
Amazing.
how I got in the door there.
Well, Elsa, I mean, it goes without saying, so many of your photos have achieved the iconic status. I mean, all of us have been in wonderful situations and incredible competitive atmospheres, but to come away with photos like you do consistently. And I'm going to quote my good friend, your good friend, the grand poobah of Getty Images, Carmen Romanelli, where he says that you're incredibly consistent because of your preparation. And that was echoed by Bruce Bennett, who I talked to this morning, who the first word out of his mouth was about your preparation. And I preach that to young photographers. If you're not prepared, and that means having extra backups and even backup to the backups because anything can go wrong. But being not on time, but being early, right? I mean, what is your game day? Let's take a gold medal game, okay? Because to me, that's like a game seven, and you said it earlier. What is your in a game like that? What's your prep day? What's your prep like on and like even getting up and what you eat and all that kind of stuff?
So I packed my gear the night before,
Hmm.
and I triple checked it just because you don't want to like get there and then miss anything. Especially it wasn't like a close arena either. It was like an hour and a half to
Ah,
get there,
yeah. Oh,
and there wasn't. It was like a newly constructed arena. There weren't
yeah.
really Ubers to like pinpoint out there, and so it was like you took two trains and then a trolley and you
Right.
walked like a half hour dragging stuff. So
Oh my God. In the
yeah,
cold,
it was a
by the
journey.
way.
So
Yeah.
like I didn't want to forget anything. And so but thankfully I did the bronze medal game the night before. It was the same venue. And so I
Hmm.
left everything that I brought for the bronze and left it there. And then I brought more crap with me when I came for the gold medal game because like it's gold medal game, you never know. And
Yeah.
so bring extra of everything. I made sure I charged all of my batteries the night before. I also had a charger with me. Just you never know what
Hmm.
if the cold is going to drain your batteries or if Olympic hockey. I think the gold medal game they would do overtimes until somebody won. It
Yeah.
wasn't like where you'd get an overtime period and then do a shootout. I think
Right.
it was like the NHL playoffs where it's like you could have five overtimes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
if you don't have enough batteries you're kind of hosed.
Yeah.
So so I had like two batteries for every camera that I had at minimum, and then I brought a charger with me, um, and so I had all that. I think I slept all right considering. I
Mhm.
think for me on the surface it was sort of a low stress game because I was the third photographer on ice. So we had Bruce and Greg Seamus there. They were like the main
Mhm.
sort of they were in the main positions of getting the scoring pictures, and I
Uh-huh.
was a nice to have on the side. And so when I got there, Bruce had kind of talked about it the night before, like kind of, oh, here's tentatively what the game plan's going to be.
Mhm.
And so I got there. The game was at 2. I think I got there about like 10:15, 10:30 at the latest, maybe.
Mhm.
And so kind of got set up, kind of unpacked. The press room was kind of chaotic. I'm like, you know what? I just need to find my zen. And so
Yeah.
after talking with kind of what the game plan is for Bruce and what he needed me to do, I just kind of went out and I kind of scoped a spot that would kind of fit all the things that we were talking about together. And I just kind of camped out and I just kind of the arena was quiet. It was cold, like the ice crew was kind of finishing up things, and I just kind of took a deep breath and just kind of like was trying to find my zen. And then just kind of also reacquainting myself with the stadium and kind of getting my bearings of like, okay,
Mhm.
how am I going to get from places,
Yeah.
when things were going to happen. And so I just kind of needed to kind of go find my zen. But on the way, we left the hotel probably about 8:30, 9 o'clock. Walked to the train, got a sandwich at the sandwich place next to the train station. That was pretty much what I did every day. Is like
Uh-huh.
roll in, get my mozzarella and tomato sandwich, and then like
Yeah.
and a cappuccino to go, and then hopped on
Yeah.
the train and got there, and then just kind of gathered my gear together and
Mhm.
just kind of went out, and I just needed some kind of quiet alone
Mhm.
time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And this particular game, so someone who had gotten me into this business early on when I was in high school was this photographer named Steve Coles. He was a newspaper photographer in Brainerd, Minnesota, where I grew up. And when I was a sophomore in high school, there was this mentorship program to pair kids with professionals in the community and careers they might be interested in. Well, I didn't know that this was actually a real job. It was a small town, and so I shadowed him for a month, and we
Yeah.
shot mostly sports. And I was never really into sport at all, but I really loved it. And that was like film, it was manual focus, like manual everything. I loved the challenge of it and I was hooked. But anyway, he had passed in November of pancreatic cancer. And so I had his picture with
Mm.
me. And so I took it out and I took a picture and sent it to his daughter of like, here's your dad at the Olympics,
Oh,
but just kind of had that kind of little moment. And I felt like maybe he was kind of looking out for me that day,
yeah.
because I think everything just kind of went to me, and and I reacted appropriately, like how he taught me and how he all taught me. So,
That's a
um,
beautiful story. So let's talk about that. Okay, so you said you're the third person. Greg and Bruce have the primary positions, let's just say, and yet you you got the iconic, probably one of the most iconic hockey shots of all time of Jack Hughes without the teeth. He's got a like fist bumping you or something on the way back to, I guess, the bench. You had the guys spilling out from the bench, at the moment of victory. Um, I mean, Walter Yost very famously says that, luck comes to the most prepared, which a million people have said. But in our business, you knew instinctively where to go. I mean,
yeah,
like Walter knew to be in the end zone for Dwight Clark's catch, right? Nobody else was in the end zone, but Walter had watched that play during practice. He knew what they were going to do, and he was the guy who got that photo, right? It doesn't happen
yep,
by chance. There's a little bit of luck involved, yes, but we make our own luck. So, how gratifying was that to you? Like, and first of all, you talk about being in your zen, being in your moment. I mean, not looking out of the viewfinder was always the hardest thing for me because of all the chaos. If you look, you miss it, right?
yep.
So
Or
talk
if you
about
think
that.
about it too much, like if you
Yeah,
think about it too much, like, oh, what am I going to do in this moment? You've totally lost it. I mean, if you look at the sequence of when Jack Hughes scored the goal to when they all piled out and everything, it was like 4 seconds. And
yeah,
so, like, if in my head, I knew
right.
exactly what I was going to do, and I knew that I wanted that bench, spilling out of the bench picture.
Oh, I
And
love
it
that
reminded
picture.
me of like Heinz Klutmeyer's picture,
Yes, very
yeah,
much.
but his was like kind of, they had already kind of spilled out, but it was, his was in that corner, but like that
Yeah,
idea of it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so I was like, okay, I knew that after the initial celebration of Jack scoring the goal, I was immediately going to the bench. And he had barely turned. I shot a couple of frames of him doing that. And then I immediately went to the bench because if I stayed on him too long,
Yeah,
I would have missed it completely.
yeah, yeah.
And so where I was
Mhm,
on the penalty box side, kind of
mhm.
looking into it. I was in the end where USA attacked first and third and in the overtime. And
Mhm.
I was lucky that, they didn't switch ends like they do with NHL.
Right,
Otherwise, I
right.
wouldn't have gotten anything. And
Mm.
so once they were in front of the penalty box, it was not my picture to have. Like,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
that was when I quickly kind of tagged some images to send to an editor. You think back in the film days, like you would have had to wait an hour or two after the event was over, but
Yeah,
because you couldn't leave to like drop your film, or if you had a film runner or something, like
right, right.
the
Are
immediacy of having those pictures out, like I had them out probably
Mhm,
within a minute after all of that happened. Once like the
mhm,
the initial celebration was out of my view, I
mhm,
immediately sent, the goal that I
mhm.
shot and this, all those, I think like 5 or 6 pictures. And then
Yeah.
um,
Were you tethered?
then
Were you tethered, or were you doing it by
I
Wi-Fi?
I was, and
Uh-huh.
then I unplugged initially because we had Michael Hyman who came out
Uh-huh.
to ingest cards, and so he stole my line basically because the idea was he was going to ingest the cards for Greg and Bruce because they were going to queue up to go on the ice for the medal ceremony,
Right,
and
right, right.
so
Yeah.
they weren't going to have time to tag images, and
Uh-huh.
so or they might have been on send all, so.
Mm.
I, became a free agent after that, and then I just um,
Yeah.
and then I grabbed another cable when somebody else dumped theirs and left to go on the ice. And so I tagged a few,
Uh-huh.
and then they started getting the flags. And so like this is the whole sort of preparation thing. The picture of Jack happened before they got their medals. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when I got there, the fans started arriving in, and like, the players' family started arriving in, I recognized like, Jack Hughes' mom, Ellen, because does a lot with women's USA hockey.
Right.
And I also saw Keith Kachuk,
Eh,
who was, the father of the Kachuk brothers and also
yeah.
a player himself who I
Sure.
photographed
I
when we both
remember.
lived in St. Louis.
Yeah.
So I saw them. I was like, okay, that's where the U.S. families are. And I saw like a few, people that I recognized, from, Canadian players' families. And I'm like, all
Right.
right, so this is where I need to go if this all ends, because they're gonna skate to their families. Like if,
Yeah.
just think about where they're gonna celebrate with the ones they love or go where they love. And so
Right.
as soon as I kind of got that initial sort of, reaction stuff out, I sprinted down to where they were.
Mhm.
And, sure enough, like, they all kind of came skating towards me.
Oh,
And
So
And it
beautiful.
wasn't very long. Like he just kind of looked up at his family and did that with his brother next to him. And then it was like 3 frames I shot of it, and then
Yeah.
he was gone. And
Yeah.
then
I mean, it reminds me of of my Michael Jordan holding the trophy picture, which literally happened in, 2 frames. Boom, 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 and
yeah,
gone. And, I guess I got lucky because I was in the right place and something came in my head to look to the left.
yeah,
But I had been in that situation in a chaotic locker room, just like you were there, in an overtime game for a gold medal. We have to do our job. And people ask me that all the time. Like, how could you not watch? And aren't you a fan? And I'm like, I'm a fan when I get back to the hotel and I turn on Sports Center or whatever. Then I'm a fan, but not while I'm
same.
working, you know?
Yeah, I when my husband and I when we first started dating, and we were living in St. Louis at the time, and I could bring him to certain things. So I brought him as like a film, a card runner
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
a football game, and he was next to me a lot, and he was like, "How do you even watch the game?" I was like, "Well, you don't. Like you
Yeah. You don't
just
watch the game. Yeah.
yeah, you kind of like, and someone asked me had I, like I knew that the gold medal game, what I had seen and what I photographed was really something remarkable, but you didn't really take it in until I'm on the train after,
Sure.
and you think like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and you're like, what the heck did I just see? What just happened? Like,
And
and
thank
then you
God
kind
I
of start
got
to
it.
digest it.
Thank God I got it. I had
Yeah,
I had the reverse reaction in 2000 when I missed arguably the greatest dunk in the history of the Olympics. I missed it. I was out of focus and blah blah blah. There's a million excuses, but there's no excuse because I missed it. And I stewed about that. I mean, this is now 26 years later, and I'm still stewing about it. But to be able to be on the train and know that you got that and know that those photos are going to live forever and a testament to your work ethic and your skill and your talent and all of the years of prep, and it's amazing, Elsa. I'm thinking also about arguably the most iconic photo of Kobe and Gigi ever taken was your incredible picture. I mean, obviously I shot them, many times, and I'll take maybe second place to yours. Them sitting on the court in one of the last games they attended, but that photo of them hugging. I mean, I get the chill. I'm looking at it right now in front of me, and I just get the chills every time I see that picture from All Star in 2016 in Toronto. Vanessa loved that photo. It's pretty much the lead photo in the Mamba Mambasita Forever book. Um, Murals have been painted about from it. Looking back on that moment, do you remember specifically that moment in Toronto? I think it was at a practice.
it was like the warm up before the All-Star game. And
Right.
so again, doing your research, anybody who follows Kobe and knows, especially on a game like that, his daughter was going to be with him, and
Right.
that she likes to shoot around with him. And so I
Yeah.
thought, okay, maybe this is a chance to kind of get
Mm.
a different side of him and a different side of that moment. And also it was going to be his last All-Star game, so everything he did was important and it was a big deal. And so, that's the thing. Get there early and
Mhm.
be ready, and just yeah, preparation.
Right.
It's all, and
But
research.
but
Like
you still preparation and research, and you knew that his daughter would be there, that this was going to be a moment. If it happened, you needed to record it and document it. And it's just such an incredibly beautiful picture. So Elsa, let's go back to the beginning of time. Now, you alluded to it earlier, growing up in Minnesota, getting the photography bug early. Do you remember a moment where you had this epiphany? Because I remember exactly where I was and when it happened. That I could make a living doing this. I mean, like this could be a career. Um, do you remember that moment for you?
um, yeah, I think so. I was kind of a part-time photographer when I was at the paper, and then
Mhm.
when I graduated high school, they're like, well, we could hire you full time, and I was like, nah, I'm getting out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not staying in this town. And so I researched journalism schools, and decided to pack up my bags and go to the University of Missouri, which was like a 12-hour drive, I think, from
Mm,
my
mhm.
little house in Brainerd, Minnesota. And that was it. But I decided then, like, I wanted to be a sport photographer. Like
Uh-huh.
I did some work for the Associated Press when I went to school in Minneapolis. Like
Mhm.
went to the University of Minnesota for a year and decided that, I needed something more than what the University of Minnesota's journalism program had to offer.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I went to Missouri, but I decided then like that was what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do sport. I
Hmm.
was sort of a shy person. I think when I first got the job at All Sport and I moved to LA, I met you
Yeah.
and Gwee, and certainly like it was very intimidating. Like coming from a town of like 8,000 people to move to Los Angeles, like that was kind of
Right.
um,
Yeah, you
a,
held your own, Elsa. Yeah, you
I
did.
tried, but
You were a little quieter in those days, but the work spoke for itself. So yeah.
yeah, I just it but it was just kind of what I liked about sport was like, you could be a shy person and still take pictures. No one's
Yeah.
gonna,
Yeah. Yeah.
you could just get your credential, do your job, take your pictures and go
Hmm.
home. And so that was kind of also appealing to me. But what
Yeah.
I loved about sport was it was always something different.
Hmm.
And in those days, manual focus, working on my manual focus skills, like I was so proud that I could, capture things that a lot of people couldn't
Yeah.
because of that sort of technical sort of skill. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, it was like I would say, my junior year in college or in high school, I knew that I wanted to be a photographer. But it wasn't until probably my sophomore year in college that I decided, no, I just want to do sport only.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it too was I had some fellows that I went to school with that said that chicks can't shoot sports, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I was kind of like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. See
So it's
that
mostly out of spite is really how my entire career path has been built. So.
I love that. I love a little bit of a I'll show you kind of thing. Yeah, I get it. And then how gratifying, by the way, um, I think it was at this Olympics where there was a photograph of all the women who were covering the Olympics,
Yeah.
and there were more women than men, right?
Yep. I was in it.
Yeah. No, you were in the
So
photo.
yeah,
We have to find that photo. Maybe you'll send it to me. But
yeah,
like, how gratifying was that for all of you? I mean, I have so many friends. Lucy Nicholson, of course, one of my dearest friends. Um, Lori Shepler, who you knew in the early days, and so many women photographers who were just incredible. Christina House,
yeah,
Wally Scally's better half, to say the
yeah,
least.
yeah.
Um, and I felt good about seeing that. I'm like, yeah, okay, because I remember when I started. Honestly, Elsa, I really don't remember. I remember, portrait photographers and fashion and Hollywood photographers, female. I don't remember any female sports photographers. Maybe Jane Kamen,
Yeah.
when I first started at the LA Times, was really the only one. Um, yeah,
And I
crazy.
think when it was really cool. And it was one of the women who works for Skate Canada that actually kind of noticed it, or it was a dude from Australia actually
Uh-huh.
noticed it too, sitting next to them. And so Danielle, kind of yelled at us. We all kind of turned around and smiled. And she snapped this picture and put it on Twitter, and it kind of
Yeah,
went out. But yeah, it was like 7 out of the 8 of us in the
that's
pool
so cool. Yeah,
were women, and I'd never experienced that before ever.
yeah,
And I
that's
don't
so
think
awesome.
even later on at other events, even at the skating, because some of the wire photographers, pool photographers, we rotated, and
Yeah,
so it
yeah,
was never that mix again.
yeah,
It was,
yeah.
that was kind of like a magic moment early on
Uh-huh.
in the Olympics. It was after the team event
Uh-huh.
when we were doing the medal ceremony for the team
Yeah,
event.
that was so cool. So I'm trying to trying to think about I'm trying to ask you what was the big break for you? I mean, what was like okay, I mean, I know that you were the first female staff photographer hired by Getty. Was that the big break, or there had to be something before that, right?
I did an internship at a sport magazine called the Sporting News, which doesn't really
Oh,
exist in the way
yeah,
that
you and
it
I
did.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I interned there, and they had just started covering other sports other than baseball when
Yeah.
or a couple years prior to that. So,
Sure.
and that was like my first taste of being a traveling sport photographer because they'd send, it was based in St. Louis, but
Uh-huh.
they'd send me to Cleveland and Chicago and like
Yeah.
wherever, and I got to go to a Super Bowl for them,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was crazy. So I feel
Yeah.
like that sort of set me up, and that I met the all sport folks that would later hire me that would become Getty Images a couple years later. And
Uh-huh.
so I think that internship was the first start of that. And
Ah, there you
then
go. See, I mean, everything you're saying is the gospel that I'm trying to preach to these young photographers who think that honestly, Elsa, they think they go to Sammy's camera, they buy a camera, open the box, and they're sitting on the floor at a Laker game. I mean, I've had
yeah,
kids, kids like say that to me. I said, well, there's like about 300 steps that come before that, but yeah, could happen, but not
There
yet.
was, someone that had DM'd me during the NBA Finals in Boston a few years ago,
Yeah,
asking if like, oh, can you get me a pass to
I
go
know.
to? I'm like, no, it's
I
the
know.
NBA Finals, first off, and secondly, I don't know you,
Yeah,
but
God bless him
it's
for
just like you
asking.
don't go from like, oh, I just bought this camera and I'm interested in sport photography to shooting at the NBA Finals. Are you nuts? Like,
Yeah.
like what?
Crazy.
Yeah.
So who did you look up to? Whose work did you look at as a young photographer? Even going back to high school and college, because I know who I looked up to. I mean, I looked up to Neil Leifer. I digested his books. Of course Walter. I went all the way back to John Zimmerman's work. With his great remote photography and all that stuff. I was
Yeah.
able to do that. Who did you look up to?
So obviously all of those photographers as well, because when you had
Yeah.
access to look at those photo books, like Walter with his baseball was really great.
Yeah.
Neil with everything, it felt like he was great. And Heinz, Klutmeyer,
Uh-huh.
he and Rich Clarkson had these like sport photo workshops back in the
Right.
day. They still do, but it was a different kind of capacity then.
Uh-huh.
And that was when I first met Heinz. And so um, he, well, actually, take that back. When I was in high school, and so I would look at Sports Illustrated,
Yeah.
and I looked at the masthead, and it said, director of photography Heinz Klutmeyer.
Hmm.
So as a sophomore in high school, I decided, and there was a phone number in the back in the old days, like there was a phone number. I called him
Oh, God
and
bless him. Yeah.
talk about having a pair or something,
Uh-huh.
So I called Heinz Klutmeyer, and I
Mhm.
got him on a good day, and I introduced myself and say, hey, I'm like really into sport photography, do you have any advice or feedback? Can I send you some pictures to look
Oh,
at?
yeah.
And so I sent him some pictures, and then he called back, a couple of weeks later, and he was like, I would like to see a contact sheet. I'm like, okay. So then I make a contact sheet, I send that to him, and then that kind of started that sort of thing. And he would very nicely give me some feedback. And then when I met him at a Clarkson workshop, he was, it was just kind of funny. And
No,
I also,
what an incredible story. And thank you for sharing that. I had the same experience with Neil Leifer. I was a young college student, and I wrote him a letter. Somebody from SI was assisting at the time. So I was assisting like Peter Reed Miller and Richard Max and Andy Haight. One of them gave me Neil's address, and I wrote to him and I said, hey, Mr. Leifer, I'm this young photographer, blah, blah, blah. I'd love a chance to meet you, and I'm coming back to New York to visit my family. And he wrote me back. He said, sure, kid, come up to the apartment on such and such time. And a 10-minute meeting turned into a 3-hour like master class in the Neil Leifer Museum, which was his apartment. And
that's awesome.
to this day, 50 years later, he's still a mentor. He's still obviously a great friend. He's helped me with book projects and having to navigate working, with big time athletes and publishers and everything else. But good. Thank you for sharing that, because the young photographers, and again, I'm going back to them because I know you get questioned all the time too. Like, how do I break in this business? Well, you got to have some chutzpah, and you got to have some whats. And
Yeah,
if you don't, what's the worst thing that can happen? He would
they
say,
ignore
you know
you.
what, not, yeah, ignore you, or I'm not interested, or maybe find another line of work. The stuff sucks, whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but if like Wayne Gretzky famously said, right, you miss the shots, you miss all the shots you never took, or whatever it was. I don't know,
yeah,
but you know what
yeah.
I'm
It was kind of crazy. Yeah, but that was kind of like my first sort
saying.
of big time. And then I
Yeah.
think too, Porter Binks.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So he was
USA
at USA
Today.
Today,
Hmm.
and when I was in high school, there was this thing that the 4-H, club would have. They have the National 4-H Institute in Chevy Chase, Maryland, or at least they did
Right.
back in the
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s. And so there was this photography workshop that they had put up,
Hmm.
and I applied and got in. And then I met Mitchell Layton, and I met Porter. I met a few other folks,
Yeah.
and I used to send. Not only was I sending black and white prints to Heinz, I
Yeah.
was sending him to like Mitchell Late. And so
Yeah. Huh.
years later, when I'm at my first Stanley Cup Finals, I just got hired at All Sport, and Dave Clutho from Sports Illustrated was there, and his assistant at the time was Darren Carroll.
Sure.
Well, Darren went to Georgetown,
Uh-huh.
and Mitchell Layton was the team photographer of Georgetown. And I used to send these black and white prints. And then he put it together. He's like, "Oh, you're the black and white print girl." And I'm just like, "Oh, here we go." But it's just crazy how like small of
Oh,
a
yeah.
world it is.
What
But
yeah,
yeah,
what a
I
testament to your perseverance and your belief in yourself and not listening to the noise, you know? I mean, this is like a master class to any young photographer who's watching this or listening to it. It's amazing. Hey, let's talk the last thing I want to talk about, Elsa, is I want to call it competitive spirit because, you know, we're all at the same game. You know?
yeah,
I mean, I spent decades sitting next to John McDonough,
yeah.
arguably, with all due respect to everybody else, my dear friend Nat Butler and John Beaver and everybody, arguably the greatest basketball photographer, I think, in the history of basketball photography.
Oh yeah, I
I
would
would
agree.
sit, I'm going to tell you this story, and I think you you might be able to relate to it. I would sit next to John in an NBA Finals game on a Sunday, shooting the same stuff in front of us. And then I get the magazine on Tuesday and I'd open up a 2-page spread and I would say, when the fuck did that happen? I mean, I'm literally watching the same thing through the viewfinder. And I would call him, and I can't tell you how many times this happened. I said, John, were we at the same game? I mean, God bless you, man. How did you get that picture? I,
He is insane.
and I think the same thing happens to you, but other photographers say that about you because I've said it about you myself.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, you just learn what to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And, I think, that's it's kind of, the more you cover a team, the more you know their little nuances and the more you can kind of predict if that's even the word, what's gonna happen. Or they're how they're potentially gonna react and you can react accordingly. And I
Right.
think
Right.
that's kind of I feel like I'm pretty good at that, and also I think being focused, no pun intended, or
Yeah,
maybe
of
pun
course.
intended, I
I
don't
mean,
know, like
locked
just
in.
kind of like tuning out all the noise
Sure.
around you and just focusing on what's happening on the field of play
Yeah.
or, and I think that has helped me too, where not that I'm not going to be chatty at a baseball game or be like, "Hey, what's going on?" But like once, in between innings, that's fine. But
Yeah.
once that, batter steps in the box, I'm like, okay,
I know.
everything else,
Yeah, people
I'm
used to
tuning you
say to
out.
me, they used to say, "Oh, you're so aloof, like you're so arrogant at games, like other photographers and videographers." And I'm like, "Why?" They said, "Well, I talk to you, don't respond." I said, "Because if I'm talking to you, I'm gonna miss that, you know. So you
Yeah.
should be paying attention, but you do your thing, and I'll do my thing." And the thing about John, by the way, is that John's his like go-to for nervous energy is to talk. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he talks constantly to the ref, to the players, to himself, to me, and I had to tune all that out in addition to literally having to compete with him right next to him. And so, I think the competitive spirit drives us too at the level that we have all been at.
Yeah.
That hey, you know what? I'm shooting with Greg Sheamus and Bruce, but I deserve to be here, and I'm gonna get. I might get a better picture than them, or maybe
Yeah.
they got a better picture than me. I'm gonna get a better one next time. Did that?
Or
You know,
you can only control like what you can control, right? And
right?
so like
Exactly.
had all the action gone their way, like great,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Exactly.
I knew what my job was and I knew, and I felt I did it pretty well that day,
Yeah,
like and
you
I
did.
think
You
I
did.
think that's kind of how you have to approach it. Like,
Hmm.
if the moment doesn't happen in front of you, then well, it's not your moment to get. So then I guess these were my moments to get this time around, I
There
guess.
you go.
But I
That's
think
very humble way of being incredibly gracious to.
but I think that's, it's you can't control what happens out on the ice or on the court or whatever, but
Mhm.
you can only control how you react to things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the other thing too that had someone had wisely said, and I don't know if it was like John Beaver or I used to assist him in college when he'd come around, so that helped me at football because like, and that was the
Yeah.
thing, like if you are assisting somebody, you see how they approach the game and you see what they're looking for, and you just kind of have to take mental notes of that. It's like, oh, he's using a six now. Why is he using a six versus this, that, and the other thing? And so
Yep.
that was really a great learning curve for me.
Oh,
And I
the
think
best training
also
ground ever. Yes, absolutely.
editing too. Like,
Yeah.
now when we're sending select images, it's not the same as looking at somebody's full take. But
Right.
when you were looking at somebody's full take, you saw the thought process and how
Yep.
they got to a picture.
Right.
And that was incredibly helpful. So I think if you're first starting out, like, don't discount like assisting or editing because that's how you learn all the magic,
Yeah.
that's where all the things are made. But for
Yep.
me too, someone had said, and maybe it was John or maybe it could have been McDonough, who knows.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's like if you're in a row of photographers, like baseball is probably the easiest example, or football, because we all have like the same kind of access, the
Hmm.
same equipment.
Hmm.
How are you going to separate yourself from somebody next to you using the same lens? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
for me, it was like the moments that I captured. And then sometimes I think that, all right, well, if this person's going to use a 7200, I'm going to use a 135 1.8 instead, or I'm going to use a 200 f2 instead.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to try something to kind of separate myself a little bit. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the hard thing too,
Yeah.
especially now, autofocus is pretty good,
Yeah.
for the most
Yeah.
part. Like, it's not getting a picture sharp isn't as magical as it once was.
Yeah. When you actually had to focus the lens, yes, and know what kind of film to bring, and a million other things that none of these people today know how even think about.
Yeah. I
Um,
used to practice manually, like follow focusing on cars coming at me with my 400.
yeah.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
just to kind of get that movement down.
Yeah,
And,
sure. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember when we at the NBA went to shooting Hasselblad at games, which to me was like insane. And Nat Butler, first game, he's pulling out gems, and it took me like a whole season just to figure out how to frame a square frame, but then also focus it, and it wasn't that difficult. It just took me forever to figure it out.
But it was also like too, when you're looking down like at it, like it's backwards. Like,
Yeah. Well, I had I
yeah, wasn't
had
it?
the viewfinder thingy, so it was a little bit more natural to be looking in. But anyway, it's just so that's a whole other story. So last question, I promise, and you've been great, Elsa, with your time. Thank you.
No worries.
What's on the bucket list? Because 30 plus years as an amazing sports photographer, is there something out there you haven't shot yet that you still want to shoot?
I think there's a couple of tennis events that I haven't shot. Like I haven't
Uh-huh.
done Wimbledon or the French Open, but I've been to both places, like during the Olympics or in the
Cool.
Paralympics last in Paris. I
Yeah.
you know, went to where the French Open is played
That's
to
on my
kind of,
bucket list too, by the way. But
yeah, I think,
yeah.
that would be pretty cool. I haven't done
Mhm.
Indian Wells, which is, or
Mm.
the Paribas Open or whatever that's in
Mhm.
March. Maybe that's an easier attainable goal.
That just finished.
Um,
It's a great,
yeah,
great spot. It's hot as hell
yeah,
out there, by the way. But yeah,
yeah.
but anything like, what about like maybe in boxing or something that you're not that known for? Is there something that you would love to do?
Hmm. I don't know. I think, I wouldn't mind doing a few other fights. I've done a few, but like
Hmm.
it's um
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like I've been at a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I'm doing the World Cup this summer, and so that's it's sort of in my backyard here in New
Yeah.
Jersey, but
Yep.
I'm kind of bouncing around all over the East Coast. And so
Hmm.
I've done a few women's World Cup finals, but this will be my first men's World Cup final. So I'm
Hmm.
excited that that will be something I could, check off my bucket list, I guess.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so it's yeah, I think, a few tennis things and World Cup final this summer, and I'll be pretty good.
Well, that's awesome, Elsa. I mean, you'll see me maybe at some of those, but not with a camera because the camera is
Yeah.
now retired. It's over there, literally in a closet. Um, but I just am in awe of your career, of your work since the day we met. I mean, here was this woman coming out of nowhere with one name, by the way. Somewhat recently, you started using your last name, right?
Well, I think on Instagram, like still my byline just says Elsa, but like all my social media things,
Yeah.
Elsa was taken already for whatever reason or unavailable. So I had to use my last name. So my Instagram, my
Hmm.
Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, it's all Elsa Garrison. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was but it's since like 99, I want to say. My byline's been just Elsa. So
Really? That well,
yeah. So I feel like you got to bring it if,
yeah.
if you're going to be ballsy enough to go by one name, you need to,
Yeah.
but I think,
Like Tiger, Serena,
yep.
Shaq, Kobe, MJ, Elsa. I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I think, it
Right.
was sort of a way for me to kind of, say that I'm here without saying I'm here, because I
Yeah.
felt pretty invisible most of the time. And
Mhm.
so I think for me, a way to um, just kind of like scream,
Uh-huh.
I could be here too. I belong here too,
Yeah. Yeah.
was kind of that. But I,
Uh-huh.
I think to, early on, I felt like I had to be so prepared
Hmm.
because, I couldn't afford to miss anything. I couldn't afford to
Hmm.
have anyone question whether or not I belong there or not. So I
Yeah, I
think,
mean, Lucy Nicholson said the same thing, and she said, I had to, I had a lot to prove. I'm trying to remember exactly what she said, but I had to just be that much better because
Mhm.
I'm in a profession that's male driven, super competitive, and to begin with, the
Yep.
guys compete with each other, and then
Oh yeah.
if you're a woman, you just gotta, it's like another notch that you gotta bring your game up, right? And Elsie,
Yep.
you've done that since day one. Keep doing it. Keep inspiring this young generation, not just female, but male photographers, the young ones out there. I know you speak to a lot of them, and so do I. And we want to leave our craft in great hands. And I think that's my mission right now. I'm doing that with the NBA and wherever. But I just really enjoyed this conversation so much. Thanks for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, totally great. Now, I'll let you know what's coming out and safe travels wherever you go.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Elsa.
All right. See you.
Such a fun conversation with the legendary Elsa Garrison. Please follow her on Instagram at Elsa Garrison. You won't believe that one person produced so many of the iconic photos you have seen over the years, and she's still doing it. It was always fun working the same big game with Elsa. I knew if she was there, I had to step up my game just to be in the same league. Keep up the great work, Elsa. Thanks to our editors, Sean Gosser and Addison Shao. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for this episode of the podcast. You know how thankful we are to all our loyal followers. Please tell all your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Legends of Sport, and of course our Instagram at Legends of Sport, and my photography on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. Folks, please check out the discount link in our social media to our friends at Muggsy. We love, love, love Muggsy's clothes, and you will too. And the discount link to our friends at You Should. The best way you should protect your skin for work, play, and everyday life. Thanks again, folks. We'll be back next week with another great episode of the Legends of Sport podcast.